I want to turn now to an all-new children's book. It's just hit the shelves, Saving the Day. It's part of an ongoing series highlighting contributions of black heroes to American history.
And the author is one of the most beloved 90s sitcom characters, the hilarious spoiled rich girl, Hillary Banks, from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Karyn Parsons is here with us in studio. Karyn, it is wonderful to have you here. Did you like that description of your character? Was that all right? All right. How do you go from that to then deciding to write about black heroes? Tell me what that transition was like and that journey was like.
Well, it wasn't exactly a whole planned out thing, but my mother was a librarian and my whole life. And as an adult, she was still a librarian. She would call me and she would tell me stories that she came across at the Black Resource Center where she worked that she found fascinating. And she told me the story of Henry Box Brown, who was an enslaved man. I don't know if you've heard this story. He literally mailed himself to freedom in a box, had a box built. He was in Virginia. They had postage applied and shipped him from Virginia to Pennsylvania to Philadelphia. And when they opened it and he had survived and he was across state lines where there was no slavery, he was free. And I was so fascinated by this story and also by the fact that I had never heard it and that my friends hadn't heard it. And I really wanted to bring this story and others that I started to discover that my mom brought to me as well to kids. And I wanted to do it in the form of books and animated films. And so that's how Sweet Blackberry started.
It's so cool because you mentioned, you asked if we had heard of it. I don't know if you've heard of it. That's kind of your whole mantra. And this next book is about Garrett Morgan, the black man who invented the traffic light.
Right, which most people would not attribute to a black man, right? There were different iterations of the traffic light. This traffic signal that we know today, the light with the three different, with the red, green, and not the colors, but the actual mechanism, that's all Garrett Morgan, and we live with that today and we take it for granted and don't ever think that it's a black man who did it.
And I was saying to you before we came on here, that was one of the few stories or few black heroes I can remember from kindergarten through high school that I was reminded of or told about or taught about that didn't include MLK, right? That's all we were usually taught. And you talk about your mom being such an influence, but your former co-star who passed also enjoyed telling stories, James Avery.
James Avery. Yeah. James Avery was big on telling us, on always sharing accomplishments and stories of about black people in history that I had never heard of, that most of us hadn't. And he was really, he was an incredible man in so many ways, but he really was a historian in that way, and he liked to share. And it was, you know, James loved Sweet Blackberry, and we had planned on him doing a narration of one of the short films. I always thought that he would, and I'm glad he got to see it at least. And it didn't really occur to me, though, until just recently how much he had an impact on me in bringing these stories and wanting to bring these stories to kids. A lot of that came from James.
Yeah, and that show in particular had such an impact on American culture, and it has staying power, and now it's got a reboot. What do you think it was about Fresh Prince that resonated?
There's so many things. I mean, we had Will Smith. Not everybody has Will Smith, right? So we had Will. But we always, from the very first week when we all met and got together, we had insane chemistry from the beginning. We had great writers, obviously. And the whole idea, you know, Andy and Susan Borowitz, our creators, were wonderful and really wanted us to contribute our thoughts and our feelings and what felt right for our characters while we were doing it, and they always asked. And I just think all of those things, I think the fact that we were having so much fun. I mean, we genuinely were, when you see, it's like when you watch people across the street and they're laughing, you have no idea what they're talking about, but they're having so much fun, it makes you feel good. I do feel like the stories were important, the chemistry was important, but you really are watching people having a great time, and that's infectious.
Yeah. This is fantastic. It's so great having you here in studio, and we didn't have to have you on a Zoom. This is so great.
It's really a pleasure to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure. Again, everybody, Karyn Parsons, and please, you can find copies of Saving the Day wherever books are sold. We will see you down the road. All right.
Karyn.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.